Hello, this is Anna Imagination with a Healing Garden. I am doing a mini podcast series called Crisis Mode Emergency Relief. And this basically is a 4 to 6 episode playlist where basically it gives you the information you need to immediately get yourself out of crisis mode and bring yourself back down into stability. So in the last one, it was an immediate, let's just go right in and here's all the pieces and here's all the parts. So hopefully you've gone through it, you're feeling a little better. So I want to take some time to talk about anxiety and really focus in on what anxiety is. There's a lot of speculation out there as to what anxiety is. And this is one of those things in psych where it frustrates me. Anxiety is a feeling trapped. That's it. It's just feeling trapped. And every hypothesis that's out there is a variation of saying these words. It's feeling trapped. You feel trapped because you don't feel like you can control the situation. Now, anxiety is not a standalone emotion. It's always partnered with fear and or guilt. Always. You cannot have anxiety and not have fear. The problem is the anxiety is so grand that it completely stamps out the fear. You can't feel the fear under the anxiety, but it's there. In fact, the fear is where it all started until you went, ooh, I want, but I can't have. So we're going to talk about anxiety, we're going to talk about fear, and we're going to talk about how emotions literally can kind of cancel each other, and not cancel each other, but become so big that you can't hear the other ones, but it's there. Imagine you're in a room and you like the room, you enjoy the room, and you want to be in the room. The room is your comfort zone. But then identity comes along and she says, I want. And you desire. So you stand up from your cozy, comfy couch and you go to exit the room to go follow identity. But then Jerry steps in, fear steps in and says, no, because that is going to be dangerous. That's not safe. And immediately you're stuck. Now, identity is there beckoning you on, but fear is there at the door saying no. Now, if identity wasn't beckoning you on, you would be perfectly fine just sitting there on the couch, lounging and enjoying yourself. It's the desire, it's the want that's pulling you, that's making you go, God, I want to go do X. But it's the fear saying, you can't have what you want. Anxiety is a temper tantrum. But adults don't like to think they can have those. They think, oh, I'm not a 2-year-old child. I have seen adults with greater tantrums than children. We throw tantrums all the time. It's called anxiety. Whenever we have an anxiety or a panic attack, it's truly because we feel like we have no control. Now, having no control or the feeling of having no control is actually a PTSD trigger, and a big one, and one that is almost never discussed outside of the healing garden. Having no control is the core emotional trigger to literally every problem. Because when you don't have control, you can't change the situation. Control is your conscious awareness. That's your authority. And that was taken away from us when we were children by parents. Our authority was handed over to our caregiver, and a healthy caregiver should have been giving that authority back to us in doses so that by the time we were 15 and 16, we had a majority of it back, that we could go and do what we wanted, change the clothes that we wanted to change our hairstyles the way we wanted, reflect our identity by showing control over our identity. However, parents, narcissists, abusers said, no, I have your authority. You can't have that. As soon as they took the authority, your ability to control diminished. Now, if you were in an abusive situation, you also had abuse, rejection, abandonment, hatred, neglect, all on top of that feeling of, I'm not in control. So now you have an association in your brain going, wow, I'm not in control. I'm going to be neglected. Oh my God, I'm not in control. I'm going to be beaten. Oh my God, I'm not in control. I'm going to be raped. Big PTSD trigger. So when you're in that room and identity comes along and says, come on, I want to go to New York City and live there. I knew as soon as I got up off of my cozy, comfy couch to walk out that door that my father would not love me, that my entire family would disown me, that I would be ostracized. And that's linked to my safety. That's linked to my security. That's linked to my belonging. So they have threatened my belonging. So now I have to choose between my identity and my belonging. And for 40 years, I chose my belonging. But identity wanted me to go. But my belonging threatened me. So fear stepped in. And then I had anxiety because I felt trapped, because I wanted to go, but I couldn't. So my anxiety built over 40 years. And it kept building. And I didn't feel like I had control because my conscious awareness surrendered control to Jerry. Jerry's in control because Jerry's the one stopping me, saying, no, you can't go. So now you have conscious awareness, identity, and Jerry all sitting there having this conversation. Now Jerry throws a tantrum because Jerry does that. Jerry then takes his fear and he cranks it up so you can't feel the want. All you feel is fear. So you decide, nope, you know what? That's scary. I'm going to sit right back down on this couch. But you've got this thing in this pit of your gut saying, I don't belong here. I don't want to be here. I want and I dream and I desire. And that gets silenced and shut down and crammed down. But that gut feeling never goes away. And now you feel powerless. You feel controlled. You feel like Jerry has your authority. So you're sitting here on your couch, on your what used to be a really great place for you, your comfort zone. And your comfort zone is not your comfort zone anymore. Now your comfort zone is a prison. Believe me, somebody who understands this. Really. This took me years to unravel. In order to stay safe, I had to lock myself in my bedroom. Now, my bedroom was my sanctuary. It was my beautiful, safe place. And it was my prison. It was both. Because I didn't want to stay and live in this bedroom. I had to stay alive. So this beautiful, cozy sanctuary was actually a prison. And this is something that a lot of people have happening in their psychology that they're not aware of. They think, well, I have a beautiful home and I have a beautiful children and I have a husband who loves me. Newsflash, if you've chosen all of those things out of fear, it's a prison. You just made it a comfortable prison, but it's a prison nonetheless because you're not free to get up and go do what you want because fear is at the door saying you can't leave. So we lie to ourselves. We make excuses to try and make the fact that it's a prison not a prison. But at the end of the day, if it were a prison, you wouldn't be there because you want to be somewhere else, doing something else. So you have this massive identity versus fear versus conscious awareness going, I can't control the situation, all playing off of each other. The conscious awareness surrenders its freedom and says, nope, I can't go because I can't, because I don't have the money, because I have responsibilities, because I have a wife to take care of, because I have a job that I need to go to every day. Yes, that's why I don't live my dream, because I have responsibilities. And identity is sitting here going, but you don't belong here. You belong in New York City. You belong doing another job that you wanted to do that your parents told you couldn't do. I want to go live and be free. And fear is sitting there going, you know the consequences if you walk out that door. Your parents aren't going to love you. You know the consequences. You choose that, you know your husband's not going to follow you or support you. So now you have to choose between your husband and your dream job or your dream life because you know your husband really doesn't support you. So you can't. So sit back down on the couch. And conscious awareness says, okay. And you sit back down on the couch and you start to realize you are in a fucking prison. And now you feel trapped because you don't have freedom. Anxiety is a lack of freedom. Anxiety is slavery. That's really what it is. But we don't call it that. We call it something different. and we make up lies and we tell ourselves something different. And Jerry plays with smoke and mirrors to make you see a different situation. And he gives you all of these different emotions. When really, at the end of the day, you are living somebody else's desires and dreams because you are terrified of what you're going to lose if you walk out that door. That's it. Bottom line. You are afraid. But you can't feel the fear anymore. You just feel the panic attack. You feel the anxiety. Now, an avoidant will say, I can't handle this anymore. And they will find a temporary escape to seek out the emotion that identity is offering them. Freedom. Identity is offering you freedom. That's the feeling. Believe me, I know. Identity is offering you the feeling and the emotion of freedom. And you can't get that unless you walk out the door. But you found out as an avoidant that if you escape into a video game, you can feel freedom even though you're still in your prison. You can go on a shopping spree and you can feel control because control is freedom. Control is freedom. So what you're really seeking is control, freedom. I will never forget the Star Trek episode. I will never, ever forget it. Star Trek original series, there's this race that comes down and declares that the Starship Enterprise it has been selected for a slave program. And the aliens who are stronger and wiser just step in and completely take over the Starship Enterprise. And Captain Kirk goes up against them, and there's a battle. They fight. McCoy, Spock, everybody's involved. And at the end, it just stops. And they're looking at him like, what just happened? And the aliens say, after careful observation and a review of your history, we realize that human beings are not good for slavery because you really don't adapt well to a lack of freedom. So I'm just going to leave that there on Gene Roddenberry. It's true. We do not do well when we are not free. We don't. We don't. It's not okay. It fucks up our brains. If we're not free, we're insane. That's the way our bodies work. That's the way our brains work. If we are not free, we go insane. Insanity looks like addiction. Insanity looks like panic attacks. Insanity looks like us constantly doing everything in our power to gain control, or at least the illusion of control, because we're not free and we're not okay with that. I had to do a lot of psychology work on freedom and slavery in order to heal. A lot of psych work. And that's where I discovered a lot of this. That's where I uncovered a lot of this. The problem is, America is land of the free and home of the brave. But what if it wasn't? I don't celebrate 4th of July because it's not. Because when I tell people that I was a slave for 40 years, and they're like, where did you live? And they're expecting to hear some weird third world country, and I say, New York. Newsflash. Newsflash. So we have this massive misleading belief in our brains saying to us, oh, we're free. We're free. We're free. No, we're not free. That's the misleading belief that society put into us so we'll obey and cooperate. Believe me, I know. Been there, done that, had to escape it. If I were free, I would have been gone in 2001. If I were free, I would still have my family. If I were free, I would still have my daughter, my oldest daughter, would still be in touch with me. No, I wasn't free. I had to sacrifice those things to get where I am so I could have my freedom. My freedom cost me. Freedom costs every one of us. And that's what you're dealing with. When you have anxiety, you're not free because you're not choosing. Because freedom is the ability to choose. And if fear is being thrown at you saying, well, if you choose that, you're going to lose X. You know what that is? That's blackmail. That's extortion, depending upon the situation. That's a threat. So every time you choose fear instead of what you want, you're going to have anxiety. You're going to feel trapped. You're going to feel out of control. And when you feel out of control, your abusers are in charge, because that's what happens to you when you're abused. When you feel out of control, your abusers are in charge and you're not safe, which is why Jerry's going off. It's because Jerry doesn't think that you're safe because you're not in control. So you need to be in control. You need to step up and take control. To do that, use your coping styles, because your coping style is physical evidence that shows you that you are in control. You don't do your coping styles, you don't do your self-care regimen because you think you can't control the situation. And that's what it means deep down. And you know this subconsciously. So if you think that you have no control over your situation, that you can't change, your subconscious mind will literally convince you that you can't even soothe yourself. So you won't even do self-care, which is why a lot of people struggle doing self-care, is because they have a misleading belief inside their head that they have no control. You do have control. It's called conscious awareness. It's called become aware of the situation, realize that you are logical. And when you are logical, you can outmaneuver the subconscious idiots that run your brain, because they're not logical. They're on autopilot. They're machines. Your subconscious mind is just a machine. It runs just like a machine. It consumes the least amount of energy to get the desired response. And if you rationalize with it and you provide a logical argument, you can change it like that. But you have to be able to out-logicize your subconscious mind, which you can learn how to do, which puts you in control. All you have to do is become aware of what's going on. Conscious awareness. So once you are aware of what's going on, oh, this asshole over here, fear, is basically trying to keep me safe by convincing me that I can't completely change my life and take it in the direction I want. Now, is it going to be hard? Yes. Do not confuse hard with impossible. Do not confuse hard with can't. You can do it. It's going to be hard, but you can do it. You absolutely can turn your life around. You absolutely can move to a different country and start over. You absolutely can wake up one day, throw down the gauntlet and say, okay, family, things are going to be different from now on because my identity is now in charge and I want. And it's going to be crazy and it's going to be weird and you guys might not come with me. So you need to make a decision, because where I'm going is going to be hard. Now you can come with me, or you can stay here where it's easy, but not free. Anxiety. The only way to defeat and get rid of anxiety is by taking action. You must take action. And you must take action toward the thing you want. Now, if it's something simple and you're afraid of, you really need to identify what you're afraid of. Because if you're afraid of losing a spouse, talk to your spouse. Say, hey, this is what I want, but this is what I'm afraid of. And here's a clue. If you can't have that conversation with your spouse, you're in an abusive relationship and you need to get out. If you want something and you're afraid of confronting a person, that person is either going to support you, great. That person is either going to fight you, they're abusive, get away from them, or that person is going to shame you. they're toxic. You shouldn't be talking to them anyway. Cut them out. And yeah, I'm aware that it could be your mother or your father. But if you're putting value on an abuser, you are choosing to have no control. You really need to prioritize who gets value in your life. And this is the hardest choice to make, prioritizing who gets value. Wow, it's easily the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with, is prioritizing who gets value. If your family gets value and they abuse you, that's going to be a problem. Because at the end of the day, a family member, a parent can still be an abuser. And you have this really old thing in your brain saying they are right. I have to honor them. I have to be kind to them. They love me. These are lies. Just because they're parents doesn't mean they love you. That is another societal lie. Just because they are parents does not mean they love you. Being a parent does not by default make them love you. They might love you in addition to that, and they might still abuse you. And when you prioritize having a parent's love over your safety, you've got choices to make. You've got choices to make. It's all about perspective. Thank you for joining me for episode 2 of Crisis Mode. And in the next episode, we're going to delve deeper into coping styles and how to have a non-toxic versus a toxic way of coping with a situation. Thank you very much for joining me.